Welcome back to Bookish Dives. It's great to, be back. And we've done a couple of deep dives already. And today, we are going to be taking a look at Feel Good Productivity.
Oh, cool.
By Ali Abdaal.
Okay.
Now, he is a doctor, entrepreneur, and productivity expert. And he really challenges the traditional hustle harder narrative
Interesting.
that we often hear about.
Yeah.
So kind of moving away from that grind set mentality.
Yeah, I think that is something that a lot of people can relate to. That like the idea that you always have to be pushing yourself to the limit.
Yeah.
There's got to be a better way.
Yeah, and he actually starts off the book by sharing his own experience with burnout as a doctor.
Right.
So he was pushing himself, incredibly hardworking, long hours, and it nearly cost him his dream of becoming a surgeon.
Wow.
So it was a real wake-up call for him.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if maybe that's not actually the most productive way to work.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. So that's kind of the turning point for him, where he realizes that true productivity isn't about working more, but working better. And a crucial part of that is feeling good.
So how does that work? Like, what's the connection between feeling good and getting things done?
Right. So he uses a classic psychological experiment called the candle problem to illustrate this.
Okay.
So imagine you're given a candle, some matches, and a box of thumbtacks. The challenge is to attach the candle to a wall so that the wax doesn't drip onto the table.
Okay, I can picture this. I mean, you can't just tack the candle directly to the wall, so what's the solution?
Yeah, so that's where it gets interesting. The solution lies in using the thumbtack box as a platform.
Oh, okay.
And what researchers discovered is that people who were put in a positive mood before tackling this puzzle were significantly more likely to find that creative solution.
That's really fascinating.
It suggests that positive emotions can help us think outside the box, literally.
It makes me think about that Barbara Fredrickson's broaden and build theory.
Yeah.
It suggests that positive emotions broaden our thinking, and they allow us to see more possibilities and build resources like resilience and creativity.
Right, and Abdaal doesn't stop there.
Okay.
He goes into the science behind that energy boost that we get from feeling good, talking about things like endorphins, serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin.
Like the helper's high. Ever heard of that?
Oh, yeah.
That researcher, Alan Lux, found that helping others actually releases endorphins. And so, it makes sense that we're biologically wired to feel good when we help each other.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So it's not just about individual success, but about contributing to the well-being of others.
Exactly.
And it's it boosts our mood and energy levels when we do that.
I think it's also interesting to think about how positive emotions can actually, counteract the negative impact of stress.
Yeah, because I've always thought of stress as just this productivity killer.
Right.
But you're saying positive emotions can reverse those effects.
Yeah. That's what Fredrickson's undoing hypothesis suggests.
Okay.
If you think about it, stress triggers the release of adrenaline and cortisol, which, leads to all these physical changes, increased heart rate, things like that.
All right.
And positive emotions can help reverse these changes, almost like hitting the reset button on our bodies and minds.
Okay, so it's not just about masking the stress, but actually counteracting its effects.
Yeah, exactly.
This is really, really interesting.
It is, I know. And this concept of feeling good, it's a central theme throughout the book.
Yeah.
He kind of interweaves it with all these other really important aspects of productivity.
All right, well, let's unpack those. So Abdaal breaks down feel-good productivity into 3 key elements: play, power, and people.
Okay.
So let's start with play. What exactly does he mean by that?
Well, he's not, talking about just goofing off or anything.
Okay.
He's really emphasizing the importance of approaching life with a sense of curiosity, adventure, and fun.
Right.
Even in our work, it's about finding joy in the process, not just grinding through tasks.
Okay, so how do we inject some of that playfulness into our work?
He suggests kind of incorporating 3 key ingredients: adventure, fun, and relaxation.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, so adventure is all about breaking out of those routines, exploring new ideas and trying new things, kind of adding that dose of novelty and excitement into your routine.
So I love that idea of adventure, but how do we inject fun into our work? Doesn't that seem like a little bit of a contradiction?
Well, think about dopamine, the reward hormone.
Okay.
When we're enjoying what we're doing, our brains are releasing dopamine,
Mm-hmm.
and it just makes us want to engage more.
Okay.
Okay. So it's really about finding ways to make, even if it's just like a small task, finding a way to make it intrinsically rewarding, whether it's just like by shifting our perspective or like, finding a new approach.
So it's not about forcing ourselves to have fun,
No.
but finding ways to genuinely enjoy what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. What about relaxation? How does that fit in?
Well, relaxation is super important because it reduces our stress and it allows our minds to become more creative and more receptive to new ideas.
Mm-hmm.
It's about, being in that sweet spot where you're challenged but not overwhelmed.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so incorporating those three, adventure, fun, and relaxation
Yeah.
are kind of the keys to making play work for us.
Exactly.
Okay.
And one of the biggest obstacles to achieving that playful state is how we perceive failure.
Right.
Like Abdaal argues that we need to reframe how we view failure, not as a setback, but as a learning experience.
Yeah, because I tend to associate failure with this very negative feeling.
Of course.
So how do we challenge that?
Well, he highlights this really fascinating experiment by this engineer, Mark Rober, who set out to prove that anyone could learn to code. He had people try these coding challenges, but half the participants received a standard error message when they made a mistake, while the other half got a message saying that they, lost 5 points
Interesting.
instead of failed.
Okay.
And guess what?
What?
The group who got the lost 5 points message actually performed better.
Wow.
It kind of suggests that reframing failure as a learning opportunity can make us less afraid to experiment and ultimately more successful.
So it's about shifting from a fear of failure to a curiosity about what we can learn from our mistakes.
Exactly.
I love that.
And Abdaal emphasizes one more really important thing about play, and that's being sincere, not just serious.
Right.
He uses this example of philosopher Alan Watts, who encouraged this approach to life with a childlike wonder,
Right.
and genuine engagement.
Yeah, so it's about bringing that enthusiasm and curiosity to everything we do.
Exactly, even the mundane tasks.
Love it. Okay, I'm feeling energized already just thinking about it.
Me too, no.
That's the power of play. Great.
That's it. It makes work more enjoyable, and it helps us find those solutions that we might have otherwise missed.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about play, but what about when we're feeling, drained and unmotivated? Like, how do we recharge and keep that feel-good energy going?
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
Sometimes, even after a good night's sleep, I still wake up feeling exhausted.
Right.
Like my battery's just not fully charged.
Yeah, and that's where Abdal's second element comes in.
Right.
It's called power.
Power.
Okay.
Yeah, so when he talks about power, he's not talking about control over other people or dominance or anything like that.
Right, okay.
It's that feeling of personal empowerment.
Okay.
That sense of agency and control over our own lives.
Just power within ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And he argues that, having this sense of inner power
Okay.
is crucial for sustaining our energy and motivation.
Especially when we're facing challenges or, when we're feeling burnt out.
So it's like when we feel empowered, we're more likely to take on those challenges and persevere, even when things get tough.
Exactly.
So how do we actually cultivate that sense of power?
Well, Abdaal highlights 3 key components:
Okay.
confidence skills and control.
All right. Let's break those down.
Okay, so starting with confidence.
Yeah.
He introduces this really cool concept called the confidence switch.
Confidence switch. Tell me more.
Yeah, so it's this idea that we can actually boost our confidence simply by acting as if we're already confident,
Okay.
even if we don't quite feel it yet.
Interesting.
It might sound counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but when we act confident, it actually sends signals to our brain
Okay.
that we are confident.
Oh, okay.
And that can lead to real changes in our behavior and our performance.
I'm a little skeptical,
I know, right?
but I'm willing to give it a try.
Yeah.
What are some other ways that we can kind of boost our confidence?
Well, he also talks about the power of vicarious experiences. So basically learning from observing other people succeed.
Oh,
Surrounding ourselves with positive role models.
right.
Whether it's in real life or even, through books or podcasts or documentaries. It's all about absorbing their knowledge and their inspiration to kind of fuel our own growth.
So it's like we're tapping into this collective well of wisdom
Yeah, exactly.
and using that to empower ourselves.
Totally.
Love that. Okay, so let's move on to the second component of power, which is skills. How do we develop the skills that we need
Hmm.
to feel confident and capable?
Right. Well, he emphasizes the importance of embracing a beginner's mind.
Okay.
It's about approaching learning with curiosity and openness,
Okay.
even if we already have some experience in that area.
So it's recognizing that there's always more to learn no matter how experienced we are.
Right.
Humility over hubris.
Exactly.
Okay, I love that. What else?
Oh, he also talks about the protege effect, which is basically the idea that teaching others actually strengthens our own understanding
Okay.
and it boosts our confidence in that subject.
Wow. So by sharing our knowledge,
Yeah,
we're solidifying our own grasp of it.
exactly.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the final element of power is control.
Yeah, control is all about, focusing on the things that we can control, even in those situations that feel, limiting
Right.
or overwhelming.
Yes, because I think we've all been there, right?
Right.
Where we felt powerless in the face of challenges
Oh, yeah.
or just circumstances beyond our control. So how do we reclaim that sense of control?
He shares this really interesting story
Oh, yeah.
about a Reddit user who felt, just kind of stuck in this like monotonous job as a software developer.
Okay.
And instead of complaining, he decided to automate his own job.
Wow. That's taking initiative.
Right.
But wouldn't that put him out of a job?
Yeah, well, it actually freed up all of his time and energy to focus on more creative and fulfilling projects.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And that's Abdal's point. Even when we don't have complete autonomy, we can still find ways to exercise control and shape our own experiences.
Right. So focusing on what we can change.
Yeah.
Even in an inflexible system.
Yeah.
I like that.
And another really powerful way to reclaim control is through, our language.
Okay.
Abdal suggests replacing phrases like, I have to
Right.
with I choose to.
Interesting.
And it's just the subtle shift, but it can really reframe our mindset from obligation to empowerment.
It's like recognizing that even when we don't have complete control, we still have the power to choose our attitude
Yes,
and our response.
totally.
Okay, so we've talked about confidence, skills, and control as these key components of personal power.
Right.
But what about like external factors?
Yeah.
How did the people around us impact our productivity
Right.
and well-being?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Because I've definitely noticed, certain relationships that can drain my energy,
Oh, for sure.
while others just leave me feeling energized and inspired.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm curious to hear his take on this.
Okay, well, that brings us to the third element, which is people.
People. Okay.
Yeah. And he emphasizes the importance of cultivating these positive and supportive relationships that energize us and help us thrive.
Right.
And he even introduces this really interesting concept called genius.
Genius. What's that?
Yeah, so it's a term that was coined by this musician Brian Eno,
Okay.
and it refers to this idea that creativity and innovation, they flourish in these supportive, collaborative environments.
Okay.
It's about being part of a community where you're surrounded by like-minded people who inspire you
Right.
and challenge you to do your best work.
So it's like this collective energy that propels everyone forward
Yes.
as opposed to a competitive cutthroat environment.
Exactly. And Abdal actually contrasts this with the comrade mindset,
Okay.
where we kind of view our peers as collaborators with this more traditional, competitor mindset,
Yeah.
which can be so detrimental.
Right.
He argues that by embracing the comrade mindset, we can foster a sense of belonging, support, and this shared success.
So it's about shifting from me versus them to we're all in this together.
Exactly.
That's powerful.
I know.
And it ties into the helper's high we talked about earlier,
Yeah. Right. All comes full circle.
where when we contribute to the success of others,
Mm-hmm.
we not only boost their well-being,
Yeah.
but we get that feel-good energy ourselves.
Exactly. It's a positive feedback loop.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together.
Mm.
Play, power, and people.
Yeah. They all kind of work together to create this more sustainable and fulfilling approach to productivity.
Yeah, and Abdal doesn't just stop there.
Okay.
He actually provides a whole bunch of practical strategies
He does.
for implementing these principles into our daily lives. And so that's, I think, a perfect segue into the final part of our deep dive where we're going to unpack those strategies
Okay.
and talk about some actionable advice
I'm right.
for how to integrate these principles into our own lives. Stay tuned.
Okay, so we've talked about the power of play, personal power, and the people around us. But how do we actually, like, implement these principles and create an approach to productivity that, really works for us in the long run?
Well, Abdal doesn't just leave us hanging. He dives into some specific strategies and techniques
Okay,
to
got
put
it.
these ideas into action.
Yeah.
And he starts by addressing, a common obstacle,
Well,
procrastination.
procrastination. Even when I know I should be working on something, I can't help but put it off.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Yeah.
And Abdal, he actually reframes procrastination as like unblocking ourselves.
Okay.
He argues that procrastination often comes from like deeper issues, whether it's fear or uncertainty,
Mm.
or even just lack of clarity about what we need to do.
Yeah.
So instead of just beating ourselves up for procrastinating,
Right.
we should try to understand why we're doing it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, try to identify what's really blocking us.
Okay.
You know, are we afraid of failure? Are we uncertain about how to even get started?
Right.
Are we overwhelmed by, like, the complexity of the task?
Mhm.
Once we pinpoint the source of the block, we can address it more effectively.
That makes total sense. So what are some strategies for like unblocking ourselves?
Well, he offers, a range of different techniques depending on what the block actually is.
Okay.
For example, if you're feeling overwhelmed,
Yeah.
he suggests breaking down the task into, smaller, more manageable steps.
Love that.
Yeah.
It's much less daunting to tackle a series of smaller things than to look at this one big, huge project.
Totally. And if fear is what's holding you back, he suggests using the 1-10-10 rule.
Okay. The 1-10-10 rule.
Yeah, so basically you ask yourself, how much will this matter in 10 minutes, 10 weeks, and 10 years?
Hmm.
It's a way to, like, put things into perspective.
Right.
And often, it reveals that our fears are actually, much bigger in our minds.
Yeah, we blow things out of proportion.
Exactly.
Ah.
And through all of this, he emphasizes the importance of self-compassion.
Self-compassion, yeah.
Like, we need to be kind to ourselves, especially when we're struggling.
Totally agree.
Yeah, we're all human. We all make mistakes.
Absolutely.
Beating ourselves up doesn't really help anybody.
No, not at all. Okay, so let's talk about another important aspect of sustainable productivity, which is setting those clear goals.
Yes, goals are key.
Yeah, so Abdal introduces this framework called NICE goals.
Nice goals. I like it.
What does that stand for?
So nice goals are near-term,
Okay,
input-based,
okay.
controllable, and energizing.
Okay, let's break those down. So near term means like focusing on goals we can achieve in the, foreseeable future.
Exactly, yeah. It just helps us stay motivated, and we can actually see the progress we're making.
Right.
Input-based means we're focusing on those actions we can take rather than, outcomes which we can't always control.
So instead of focusing on like losing 10 pounds,
Yeah.
I focus on exercising regularly and like, making healthy food choices.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that.
And then controllable, well, it means setting goals that are within, our sphere of influence.
Right, we can't control everything.
You can't control everything, but we can control our actions.
Yes, and energizing means choosing goals that excite and inspire us.
Yeah, it's got to be something that, lights you up.
Absolutely, yeah. I love that emphasis on energy.
Yeah.
Okay, so once we've set these clear goals, how do we stay on track?
Well, Abdal is a big fan of accountability buddies.
Yeah, having someone to keep us accountable
Yeah.
can be a great motivator.
Absolutely.
How do we find an accountability buddy?
Well, he suggests finding someone who, either shares similar goals to you
Okay.
or is working on something, related. It's also really important to establish those clear expectations and boundaries up front.
Right, right.
What kind of support do you need?
Yeah.
How often are you going to check in? Things like that.
So creating that structure for
Yeah.
support and progress.
Exactly. And, even with the best goals and accountability systems, we're going to face setbacks and challenges,
Right.
That's where resilience comes in.
Yeah. Resilience.
Yeah, so he shares this really valuable technique from Toyota founder Sakichi Toyota.
Okay.
It's called the 5 whys.
5 whys. Okay.
Yeah, so whenever we encounter a problem
Mm.
or a setback,
Yeah.
we ask ourselves why 5 times.
Okay.
And it helps us kind of, uncover that root cause of the issue.
So it's like peeling back the layers of the onion.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh.
And then once we know the root cause, we can identify potential solution.
All right. And move beyond those surface level fixes.
Exactly. And, it just helps us become more resilient
Yeah.
and better problem solvers in general.
This is all so insightful. I'm feeling a lot more like equipped to tackle my goals and approach things in a much more positive way.
I'm so glad.
Yeah. Do you have any final wisdom from Abdal before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think one of the most important takeaways is that, feel-good productivity isn't really a destination.
Okay.
It's more like a journey.
Right.
It's about constantly, experimenting and learning and
Mhm.
adapting our approach to find what truly works best for each of us.
It's a very personalized thing.
It is, and he actually encourages us to view his book, just as a starting point, a springboard for
Okay.
our own, personal growth.
That's a great way to put it.
I think so too.
Yeah, so it's not about following a rigid set of rules.
Right.
It's more about having that flexible and adaptable mindset.
Totally.
Okay. Well, this has been such an incredible deep dive into feel-good productivity.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a fresh perspective on productivity
Yeah.
and a roadmap to a more fulfilling approach to work and life, I highly recommend this book.
I second that.
And if you want more, daily deep dives like this,
Yeah.
be sure to follow Bookish Dives. We'll be back tomorrow with another awesome read.
Sounds good.